Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. And I have great guests tonight, and I think we'll have a great discussion tonight. So, thank you for joining. If you're watching this as a recording, so just feel free to contact me or Robert for any questions you will have after this video. And now we will go to the discussion. And as you know, it's fifth episode of our second season of podcasts. And today we have a lot on our plate to discuss. But anyway, let me just remind you that I'm Alexander Moskaliuk. I have more than 20 years in IT, and Rainer could not join us tonight. So I will be hosting this episode by myself. And the small introduction about our sponsors of our coming conference. So we have a premium sponsor Deutsche Telekom, and also Masventa and IREB are sponsoring all our events as well. And let me introduce my guest, Robert. I am happy to have you. Could you please tell a few words about yourself?
Certainly, Alexander. Thanks for hosting me today. I'm delighted to be here. Greetings from Chicago in the USA. I've had a 30-year career, 30-plus year career across many roles in IT. I joke that if you were to try to conceive the most generic IT consultant you could imagine, I probably come pretty close. What makes me unique is that I have a strong background in the performing arts, so theater, improvisation, Latin dance, and music. I've been an instrumentalist and a vocal performer. And so the books that I've written and my public speaking are highly inspired by the performing arts, which helps me to identify ways to solve VUCA. And so I think this is a very controversial topic. And so that's where about a week ago, I think you and I came up with this title. Do business analysis professionals, do you have to surrender to VUCA? Do you always have to sound terrible? And the answer is no. And so I hope this conversation shows business analysts how to lean into the performing arts and certain metaphors so that you can refuse to surrender to VUCA.
Thanks. But while we start, what is VUCA? What is this terrible for symbols?
So I'm sure for some of your listeners, they have now heard this acronym 30 times in the last, few weeks. But there are still business analysis professionals where this acronym is new. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. In other words, random, maybe even hopeless. And so the three images that I put here on the slide try to welcome the listener, the viewer, to take a stance. What is your approach to VUCA? The image on the left, this woman who she's holding her head, her world is VUCA, and she's annoyed. She's annoyed. So she does not surrender to VUCA. The image in the middle embraces VUCA and says, the whole world, it's just a mess and traffic jams, and we must surrender. In fact, there are some professionals who prefer VUCA. They embrace VUCA, and it's their sweet spot. It's even their comfort zone. And so let's recognize who are those professionals who prefer VUCA, because that is the culture that they will try to shape. And then the final image is this traffic. It appears very fast. It's well organized. It's very disciplined. And every car at that speed really cares about the car next to it. In other words, every car is empathetic. So what I'm trying to do is share tools that shape a culture away from low discipline and low empathy to a culture of high discipline and high empathy. And that combats VUCA and solves VUCA. So we don't have to surrender to VUCA if you like that image on the right. But again, if you prefer the image in the middle, your colleagues just need to know that you want a traffic jam for your team.
and that you can handle it, and or it's normal way of going of things
Yeah,
at this context or
BAU, business as usual. But hey, if we thoughtfully, mindfully go into a traffic jam, what are we going to do? We're going to use the bathroom, we're going to get a drink, a snack, good music, and we're going to set the expectations extremely low that no one gets anywhere fast, because frantic and in a hurry is not the same as having the team arrive at its destination quickly.
Yeah, totally.
Frantic is not fast for the team.
Yeah. So what we can say, about leadership and VUCA.
Yeah. So I think for the past, and what I'm about to say is again quite controversial, but in the world of VUCA, I believe nothing is sacred. And there are two leadership paradigms that we've had for 10, 20 years, maybe more. And those two leadership paradigms, one is values-based leadership. Stephen Covey, great job. And I forget whether he's values or principles based. I remember the 7 habits, but for some reason I'm crediting Stephen Covey today about values-based and principles-based leadership. Again, these have been around for a really long time. Are they solving our biggest problems? No, because they're too squishy. There's too much ambiguity. And so my recommendation is that we bring the altitude down 1 level or so. What about metaphors-based leadership? Because when we talk about metaphors, it's more tangible. It's closer to our word choice. It's less ambiguous. And so over the last couple of years of my writing and public speaking, I've landed on a handful of metaphors that I believe exemplify good teamwork, and a few metaphors that exemplify bad teamwork. And so I think these are helpful images to describe our culture, to describe our teams, so that we can, for example, say, do we imitate a symphony? Do we resemble a symphony? Or do we resemble a traffic jam?
Okay, so what are these metaphors?
I think they're on I think I inventoried a few on the next slide. Did we freeze to each other again? I'm still here. Alexander. Testing 1, 2. You're muted, Alexander.
Sorry for these technical issues. So we are back.
Is it my connection or yours, or do you
No,
know?
I think it was mine.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah. So please. Okay.
Yeah, so these are the first. I think there are more, and this is where I would love reactions from the audience, whether it's live or recorded. First of all, do you like the idea of metaphors-based leadership, or do you prefer the high altitude of values and principles-based leadership? But if you're at least if you welcome considering metaphors-based leadership, I would ask the audience, what metaphors come to mind for you? 2 weeks ago, in fact, when I was speaking, someone in the audience mentioned the metaphor of a sloth, an animal that's incredibly slow, because she felt that her team was extremely slow. And Alexander, should I back up again in case your connection dropped? Your connection dropped again? Should I back up?
Yeah, please. Yes, and I will share my screen, but I will make you as host. So
okay,
there should not be any issues. Yeah, if my connection just let me make you a host.
okay.
So your host now.
Okay.
And yeah, let's try third time.
Start again. Okay, sure, of course. So I would love to pause on this slide and ask the audience at least a couple questions. First of all, does this concept of metaphors-based leadership resonate with you? Do you like the idea of bringing down the altitude of a leadership paradigm, or do you prefer the higher level leadership paradigm? Secondly, I would ask if you're willing to consider a metaphors-based leadership paradigm, what metaphors come to mind for you? What are what are the metaphors that hint at good teamwork, and what are the metaphors that hint at bad teamwork? So here on the right, on the left, you see these are the first 5 that came to my mind for purposes of this conversation. There are more in my books and in my speaking, but I believe the metaphors of a symphony, a factory, or a flywheel, the metaphor of theater, dance is not on here, but partner dance, lead, follow, elasticity, improvisation, because are we always on script? Of course not. So what does the art of improvisation have to teach us for healthy teamwork? And then the asset portfolio. When I think of what's worth putting on paper, what do we leave behind for the next generation and the next team? I think all of these items on the left are metaphors for good teamwork. For metaphors for bad teamwork, the items I've listed for this conversation, I believe a communication traffic jam. If we have meeting gridlock, we're double booked, we're triple booked. We have back to back to back to back to back to back meetings, and we have overload and backlogs that are unmanageable. Again, bumper cars is a reference to being double and triple booked, or last minute cancellations of meetings. Whiplash, where we are constantly pivoting in our priority, which means that every week that we're working on something, well, it's a guarantee that the next week the priorities will change. So we're never working on the top priority because we're in a culture of whiplash, where maybe our attention span is terrible, and the one word squirrel kind of encapsulates that. And then we have coworkers who behave as if they're a bull in a china shop. They're not really there to help other team members and to really move the needle and progress the team. They're just there to disrupt and make noise. And so my second question for the audience, whether it's live or recorded, is what metaphors, good and bad, come to mind for you?
Yeah, I really like metaphors from the good teamwork, but unfortunately, in my experience, I see a lot of metaphors that I can use for my previous projects sometimes. Yeah, from the bad teamwork column. So
Yeah.
what should we do? Yeah, if we are in the left column.
Okay. Wait, what should we do if we're in the
Bad teamwork.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Yeah. It's
at least I'm paying attention.
of course. Yeah.
So I'd like to pull out a quote. Chris McChesney is the author of a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Again, the book is The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And the quote I stole from his book is, "Execution's 2 best friends are simplicity and transparency." Again, execution's 2 best friends are simplicity and transparency. And so I believe business analysts, regardless of where you are on the org chart, you might be senior, you might be junior, but I believe you have hands on 2 levers. And I'll bring my hands up. You have 2 levers. And if you push these levers in one direction, you promote VUCA and you increase those last 2 letters of complexity and ambiguity. And if you pull those same 2 levers, you shape a culture of simplicity and transparency. And that is the quote. Execution's 2 best friends are simplicity and transparency. And regardless of where you are in your org chart, you're junior, you're senior, you have hands on these levers of simplicity and transparency through your word choice. And so I like that you moved to this slide. There are certain mechanics in our teamwork that are healthy and conducive to teamwork, and they promote a culture of simplicity and transparency. And there are other mechanics, word choices that undermine simplicity and undermine transparency. And so the reason why I chose the word mechanics is as a dance instructor, I joke with my students that I am here to only teach them the mechanics of salsa, bachata, cha-cha, rumba, this sort of thing. And I do not teach style. But what I hope my students are able to achieve in my classes is that they see me and they realize, well, if this clown can do it, I can do this. I can also master the mechanics. And mastering the mechanics, mastering the mundane to help release your brain power so that you can elevate your focus to style. And so I hope that I help my students be self-sufficient in the mechanics and build their confidence so that they're not looking at the dance floor. How terrible would it be to be in a dance lesson for an hour, a week, a month, for a long period of time, and you are constantly still looking at the floor? That's being mired in the mechanics, and you can never elevate your focus to your dance partner, other people on the dance floor, your style. Do you even like this song? So my hope is that I believe there's value in distinguishing mechanics from style. And so the mechanics to promote a culture of simplicity and transparency, I took aim at this framework it's almost sacred, but I'm going to propose that it's not sacred. Many of us know this framework as RACI or RACI, RACI, and I now call it the 4 adjectives. The RACI matrix has been around for 20 years. Is it helping business analysts with their biggest problems? It is not. The RACI is better than nothing, but again, that's a very low bar, and that's a license for low expectations. And so in the English language, there's a form of speech that conveys action. And that form of speech is not an adjective. It's a verb. So instead of having these 4 adjectives, could we replace the 4 adjectives with verbs? I believe the answer is yes, but we have to consider, well, these verbs, how do they apply to our communication channels? So now I'm going to lean back into this metaphor of a symphony. Can I create a symphony out of an infinite number of meetings? No, I cannot. Can I create a symphony out of an infinite number of emails? No, I cannot. Can I create a symphony out of an infinite number of verbs in a task list or project plan? No, I cannot. I can only create a symphony out of what is finite. It can be a lot. It can be 10, 20, 50, 100, but it must be finite. And so the third communication channel that business analysts contribute to is structured documentation. And the third M of this material is the money. And we can talk about the financial profile of structured documentation. In what circumstances is it popular? What circumstances is it unpopular? But on this topic of mechanics, we can create a symphony out of a finite number of items that are worth documenting if we govern with a finite number of verbs. And so instead of governing with 4 adjectives, I propose to you to govern as much as possible with 5 verbs. And so I think the next slide maps these 4 adjectives. So everyone who is familiar with the RACI matrix, you see these adjectives on the left, and they correspond pretty well to 5 verbs that can reside on 4 rows of a project plan. And there's I didn't include a slide that shows these 5 verbs in a project plan. That's easy to do, or we could put it in the LinkedIn comments later. But you see the mapping here. And so if you were to ask, what are these 5 verbs? The verbs are draft, review, revise, approve, distribute. And so I can imagine going back to a metaphor of a factory and a flywheel. I believe everything a team might consider governing with 4 adjectives, first of all, it's worth putting on paper. Therefore, you might as well govern it with verbs that require you to document things. It is forced collaboration. Collaboration is not optional. And if anyone is in a culture where collaboration is optional, I would like to talk to them. So the 5 verbs, and I want to hit my pause button here, Alexander, because I'm monopolizing. But I would ask business analyst professionals If you agree with me that RACI is too ambiguous, then consider mapping it to 5 verbs, put that in a project plan. And one final thing about the value and the strength of 5 verbs is it actually helps you avoid over documentation, because the minute your team cannot assign one of these verbs, go to the pub. Because what effectively you are saying is that this work isn't worth putting on paper. It's not worth collaboration. We don't care about the durability of the work. This work is disposable. Let's do that work at the pub. So I'm only half joking when I say your team's collaboration. It's either worth the discipline and the empathy and the durability of 5 verbs, or it's worth the disposability of going and doing that work at a pub.
Yeah, and I want to support this because for me it was first time I saw it. It was really not so clear, because when we're talking about RACI, we're talking about different project processes, and not often you have documents at every step or every phase of the project that you assign all this for. You assign accountable somebody or responsible or something else. But if you start thinking about inputs and outputs of the project, you will get it. It can be not a standard paper document, but it can be some information, some data, some artifact that we create during this step. And in this case, it works perfectly. Yeah, you can just find the person who should draft it and prepare it. Yeah, you should find somebody who should approve.
Yeah, the person who's assigned approve is effectively the sponsor who says this document is worth doing. I will approve it. I am the sponsor. The person assigned approve is a micro escalation point for if and when someone disagrees within a process flow, within a project charter, within training materials. The person assigned approve is a sponsor, a micro escalation point, and a tiebreaker. All those things are valuable.
Yeah, and it's much easier to explain to people what does it mean accountable. Yeah, should I do it by myself? Should I pay for this? Yeah, what's going on? Yeah, I will be fined. Yeah, if something happens. Yeah, but in this case, it's more clear.
Cool. And the verb draft is also conducive to involving a junior employee. So oftentimes, if a team is in a hurry, they drag along a junior employee and they don't get them intrinsically involved. And so the verb draft, right? It's a low bar just to get something on paper to have the other subject matter experts to proceed with divergent thinking, convergent thinking. So it is a easy way to involve junior employees.
Did you think about using not draft but prepare?
So I've debated with myself different verb choices. The word prepare, I feel, is ambiguous because I don't know whether that's worth putting on paper.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to minimize ambiguity. No one's going to confuse, well, they better not. What, draft? I don't know what you mean. Whatever could you mean by draft?
Okay, yeah, but anyway, yeah, you can just it's much easier to explain. And also, in my experience, very often people don't think about first step of preparing some document, making some document, of drafting it, because they just think about a ready to use document. And in this case, we can divide these 2 steps and show that, yeah, you should spend some effort to prepare it, to draft it, to put all the information you need and prepare this artifact, and then only send it for approval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be enough. That might be enough on this slide, unless you have other reactions or questions.
Not yet. We don't have any question there. So let's go to culture traits.
Yeah. So if you love VUCA, I just want to help you by giving you a word cloud of all the culture traits you are signing up for. when you embrace VUCA, you embrace email overload and verb sprawl, priority whiplash, meeting gridlock. You want squishiness, you're going to call it fluid. Maybe you have an impressive vocabulary and you want to exercise your impressive vocabulary. We diminish the value of documentation. We degrade the value of documentation. When we embrace meeting minutes, it's like we're going to talk, and then CYA, cover your backside, meeting minutes. Talk, meeting minutes. And what I'm trying to do is invert what's in the front seat. Instead of a team being driven by meetings and emails and having documentation be an afterthought, I'm recommending that you switch seats. And in the front seat is whatever your team does that is worth 5 verbs. In the back seat are meetings and emails. Spend as many meetings as you need to accomplish the 5 verbs. Send as many emails as you need to accomplish the 5 verbs. So again, this word cloud tries to it's teasing to the audience if you are really embracing and insist upon having a VUCA environment.
Yeah, but I really care about meeting minutes, because for me it's one of my my favorite instruments. But I don't do this after the meeting. I combine it with meeting agenda.
Okay.
So just use it to log all the open questions I need to discuss with somebody,
Okay.
and then just write down the results.
Okay.
So
Okay.
in this case, yeah, it's not just writing down what you've already discussed. Yeah, you just you use it to prepare to the meeting, and also write down the results that you achieved. Yeah, during
Okay.
the meeting. But
Okay.
yeah, if you're talking about meetings, a friend of mine used to say that if you don't want to work, just schedule a meeting.
And then write down whatever the strongest personality, the strongest personality might monopolize, and stroke their ego and get it on paper and move on with life. And was there
Yeah, yeah,
collaboration? Doesn't matter. What's important is that we talked and that there's a paper trail.
yeah. We
Collaboration
have all.
be damned.
Yeah. We have okay. All day of meetings. Yeah, we have all the meeting
And
minutes. Yeah.
imagine a new employee. If you're a new employee, which would you rather inherit? If your manager says your onboarding consists, I'm going to give you 50 to 60 documents that are all meeting minutes over the past half year. Or, or your boss can say, I'm going to hand you about 50 to 60 documents that all have proper titles and they were all governed with 5 verbs. I believe,
I would
go ahead.
prefer second option.
That's
Yeah,
right.
actually.
It's because it shows competence and trust and rigor and discipline and accountability and alignment and discipline. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We know exactly what to document and why. So that is why one reason why I believe an asset portfolio, that was one of the good metaphors, because now that you have this rigorous, well-governed asset portfolio, your team is less likely to be in documentation debt. We've heard of tech debt, but there's a thing called documentation debt. So armed with an asset portfolio, you are on the frontier to innovate more, debt-free. And I believe there's power, there's a financial incentive for you to be out of documentation debt. And so by focusing on the 5 verbs and by building this asset portfolio, what you inherit is going to give you confidence in your team and leaving a legacy. The subtitle of my second book is 5 Verbs Shapes a Team's Legacy. And all of us have to decide, do you want to leave a legacy of meeting minutes, or do you want to leave a legacy of 50 to 60 documents that were essentially governed imitating a symphony?
I have other thoughts about meetings, because recently we discussed the time log, work log for our team members, and there was a great comment from one of my team members that, okay, but how can I how can I log meetings? It's not connected to my I'm not doing the job. Yeah, I'm at the meetings, but I say, okay, guy, But if you're not doing, if you're discussing during the meeting some questions connected to some project, you are doing the job. You are just defining the requirements. You're asking open questions. You're checking something. So you're working on the project.
Yeah.
But if you are sitting there just waiting until somebody stops talking, yeah, writing down some meeting notes, it's very complicated to log this time to some project.
You're you're tiptoeing into the topics of traceability and orphaned work. And so when you lean into this asset portfolio, you are leaning into a stable inventory of things worth documenting, that's traceable. Nothing is orphaned. Okay, so this should raise the confidence of the team and the five verbs because it's transparent, it's vulnerable, it raises the humility of the team. And so these are, I mentioned earlier, two of the culture traits that the five verbs helps is it helps improve your discipline and your empathy. And it also helps improve your self-esteem, your confidence in the work, and your humility in the work. So imagine not having a culture where you have low self-esteem and low confidence. And I think there's another slide later that talks about the job market and the impact on the job market of a methodology with low confidence. So the five verbs, and there are other things, the five verbs is about 50% of the value proposition of my books, my public speaking. The other 50% is less focused. It's not as tight and succinct as five verbs. But again, the culture that I'm trying to shape is increasing your confidence and your self-esteem, and increasing the humility of the work. I think that's an attractive place to work.
Yeah, it's a great place to work. Yeah, we just need to find some managers who approve it.
And well, so we can manage up without kissing up. The managers who are in power, let's see, I think there's a slide later. Let's pick up that conversation later about who has the incentive, for simplicity and transparency. And there's a good chance that people hearing my voice right now, maybe your managers, they don't have the incentive for simplicity and transparency. But I'm sharing tools that give you simplicity and transparency.
Okay, let's talk about verbs a little bit more. So we have some good verbs, yeah?
And I'm hoping that you enjoy that socialize is the largest verb here. So this word cloud anticipates those who don't like the five verbs. And I would like to give you a head start in Verb Sprawl. So maybe you'd like 30 different verbs, 50 different verbs to carry around and have ready for when you organize work. You might want to choose some of these verbs. And yes, my chin is absolutely dripping with sarcasm right now. But again, if you don't like five verbs and you like verb freedom and you like verb sprawl, I just ask you to own it. There's a time and place for your impressive vocabulary. I don't believe a project plan is that place. But if you disagree, then here I think the Greeks call it reduction into absurdity. And so I'm hoping to show you an example of absurdity. This is verb sprawl.
So you mean that these verbs just helps us to understand how to avoid this VUCA?
No. This is how to embrace VUCA. This is the craziness.
VUCA.
Yeah, this is for the contrarians and the skeptics to say, no, Robert, you're oversimplifying. Five verbs. You can't govern everything. I need more verbs. I need more ambiguity. So these verbs help you with ambiguity and complexity. I think from the same book, Chris McChesney's book, there's a quote: "Complexity is a silent killer." And so if you like complexity, this again, this is filled with sarcasm, but I'm trying to help you increase your complexity and increase your ambiguity. So if you want to shape a culture of VUCA and randomness and have a license for low expectations, go crazy. These are just 40 verbs or so. At my previous employer, I carried around a sheet of paper that had 100 verbs. And I knew that the team I was working with, part of their unwritten success factors is that they exhausted and exploited verb sprawl. And we spent a lot of our time reinventing the wheel. We were amusing ourselves with our exotic vocabulary. Were we doing true valuable work? Absolutely not. It was just a game of semantics. It was sad, but that was the unwritten success factor for that team was wordplay, verb sprawl.
Okay, but still, I'm not getting the main idea. Sorry for that. But
The main idea, this is sarcasm.
yeah, I understand. So you mean that all these verbs that we have here just making all these things complicated,
That's right.
and we should just find something to.
I'm recommending you avoid this.
Okay, just draft, approve, review, and
as much as
distribute.
possible, because that's the metaphor of an agreement factory. So if you've heard the phrase a team that's all over the place, if you want to be a team that's all over the place, in fact, I attached the wrong slide here. So if you like the idea of rhythm, verb sprawl undermines rhythm. If you like the idea of reinventing the wheel, verb sprawl will help you reinvent the wheel, but you will never find a groove, a rhythm. Again, this is high variability. And there's that phrase, a team that's all over the place. It's random. We're scattered. If you want to be a team that's scattered, one fast path to being a team that's scattered is dream up new verbs.
I agree that it's part of everyday tasks of a lot of managers and companies. Yeah, but and at least I can agree with you that a lot of these verbs just make things more complicated, or just avoid the results. Helps to avoid the results.
You slow down your planning, you slow down the interpretation of that plan. And so I did find, it's not on the screen, but I'm showing it on my PC. When you embrace verb sprawl, it's high variability. You welcome this public dumping ground, a public dumping ground of spontaneously conceived work. You reinvent the wheel. Your team will never have smoothness. You will never imitate a dancer. You have no habits. It's as if you are dancing, looking at your feet. You are mired in the mechanics. And you undermine your creativity because evidently your creativity is limited to your verb choice instead of your creativity being customer centric, being human centric. So there's a negative domino effect of verb sprawl. It's a license for low expectations. It's a license for VUCA.
Yeah. So I have a homework. I will write down. I will pin this slide, and I will try how many words of this we use in everyday life in our projects.
Yeah.
And
so
see.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and see how we can replace it.
Yeah, so that's a common of the 10 steps to adopt a people-centric methodology. Step 1 is convert a RACI to the 5 verbs. And that's quite, it's not sophisticated. What is more sophisticated is step 2 is when you look at a project plan that has 40 different verbs, analyze that project plan, that task list for titles of work that is worth putting on paper. That's the asset. Queue it up, put it in a sequence, govern it with 5 verbs.
Okay. Yeah, let me try.
And I'm happy to help. If anyone would like, 15, 30 minutes, because I've done this so often for the past 20 years, I'm quite skilled at helping teams convert verb sprawl to the 5 verbs.
Yeah, but I'm afraid you can kill a lot of corporate cultures with this simplification.
It helps teams shift left instead of high marginal costs. I think we'll talk about the money aspect here shortly. Instead of working so far downstream in projects, because your efficiencies come downstream, there's a lot of work that can be displaced upstream. It's more entrepreneurial. It's closer to the customer. It's further away from the tech. It's further away from design, build, test. All that stuff is downstream. But yes, when you have muscle memory, the more muscle memory you have, that is a form of automation. Instead of tech, it's our internal muscle memory. We can do stuff in our sleep, and that forces us to move upstream. But all business analysts want to be more strategic. This is conducive and helps you be more strategic. It helps you move closer to the customer, closer to the C-suite. So it's absolutely congruent with many of the career objectives of business analysts, so that you're not working in the weeds. When you're reinventing the wheel and you're working in verb sprawl, you're in the weeds. You're in the weeds of verb choice. Why do you want to stay in the weeds of sweating word choice and verb sprawl? Shift left, go upstream. It's more strategic.
Yeah.
It's more fun. That's where the creativity should be. That's where the empathy should be.
Yeah, and anyway, we are business analysts, so let's talk about business. Let's talk money. How can we earn more money with this approach? What do you think?
So absolutely, because you are more skilled, you know what to put on paper. What my audiences have told me over the last couple of months is, Robert, there are a lot of innovation professionals. They don't know what to document. They don't know what they don't know. Okay, well, this material educates you on about 60 different things that are worth putting on paper. And I joke, for anyone who's averse to documentation, I joke, well, then my second book gives you 60 things to avoid documenting. Avoid documenting a project charter, process flow, GUI design, logical database model, training materials, right? This is absurd. A business analyst who has a strong grasp of what is worth putting on paper gives them the curiosity to learn more, and it helps them expand the scope of where they can contribute. They can work downstream, they can work upstream, they can work cross-project. And so it is, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's absolutely straightforward. And again, just like on the dance floor, if I can do it, you can do it. Learn the 60 things that are worth putting on paper. And where Waterfall might have emphasized project specific and tech documentation, what this body of work emphasizes is cross-project documentation. And it's not about the tech bits, because again, what makes innovation teamwork difficult? It's not the software, it's the people. So we need better tools that are not project specific, they're cross-project. We need better tools that are cross-project to help humans work with other humans better, because when a team gets itself into trouble, it's the people who are the problem. And so, yeah, I'll pause there. Money,
Okay.
show me the money.
Yeah, let's talk money.
All right. So this bar chart on the left. So first of all, Alexander, before I explain this, there are two bar charts here. Does one bar chart or the other resonate with you? Is one of these more attractive to you?
I should say about this second one.
Okay. And are you comfortable elaborating? Why is that second bar chart, high upfront cost and low marginal cost, why does that feel more attractive to you?
It's a good question. Because maybe, yeah, my logic was that you can spend more just to understand and prepare everything, then you can get better margin. But looks like,
So margin is the key word. Yes, profit margin.
okay, yeah, but we need more. Always, the margin should be higher.
Well, okay, but achieving low marginal cost is not free.
Yeah, of course,
Okay,
we
so
should invest.
that's right. And
Mhm.
invest is that tall blue bar. You said the word invest. I violently agree, and that is the tall blue bar. That is the
Yeah,
work.
okay.
And
Mhm.
this bar chart on the right, it's all of business. It's all of business. If you don't strive for that bar chart on the right, you don't have a prayer at profitability. And what is innovation? But it's transitioning from the bar chart on the left to the bar chart on the right. Okay, so let me back up and let's talk about again, there's something missing on this slide. Let's talk about the 3 communication channels. If you are a team that's addicted to meetings and emails, it is totally understandable because of the short blue bar. It's just cheap and easy to call that next meeting and send that next email, reply all. Totally understandable if your culture has a comfort zone of meetings and emails. But if your culture, if you yourself start to complain, we have too many meetings, I have too many emails, that is also understandable because of the tall orange bar. And if you consider yourself caught in a communication traffic jam, that is the tall orange bar. Your marginal costs are high. Why is structured documentation so unpopular? It's the tall blue bar. It's a lot of work to create that roadmap, that project charter, the process flow, etc. I admit it's not free. It's not free. The 5 verbs, not free. So why would we bother? It's the short orange bar. It is now easy to pivot. It's easy to onboard. If I have a 38th stakeholder, 39th stakeholder, I can onboard them with one and many assets. If and when we change our mind, we just pull out the document. What did we agree to X number of weeks ago, X number of months ago? So I would ask the audience, how do you see agility? In the Agile Manifesto, it talked about frequency. Over the past 20 years, the Agile community has also claimed speed. And I'm asking you to consider option C. Could you see agility as low marginal cost? And I believe that not enough executives know how to reduce marginal cost. So that's why when executives want to, quote, cut costs, instead they cut upfront costs. And that's called layoffs. And that's called a terrible job market. And so my hope is that if I can get teams to be obsessed, instead of being obsessed with speed and frequency, be obsessed with synchronization, because then you have a prayer for speed, and be obsessed with low marginal cost. So the bar chart on the left is VUCA. The bar chart on the left is procrastination, it's neglect, it's low discipline, it's low empathy. The bar chart on the right, it's high discipline, it's high empathy. And of course, I call this, it's elegant. It is the opposite of VUCA. It is elegant.
I can totally support this because even in my current project, when I joined it, so there was a lot of meetings and they like to create meetings and send emails. And my position now, I am trying to automate all the processes. And when I was fed up with all these meetings, I said, guys, okay, we are talking about more than 1 hour, about 1 questions. There is 7 of us. So we spent 7 hours of talking about this, but we don't have any solution. Let's just stop talking and trying to draft something and prepare some document where we can test or get some results. And I should say after this, they stopped calling me to their meetings and I was really happy. I had a lot of time just to start automating processes and showing how you can structure the communication, structure all the documents and avoid all these emails and all other stuff.
Meetings are wonderful servants. They are horrible masters. And in the example you just provided, meetings were the master.
Yeah.
There's 2 other fun examples of these bar charts. So one fun example is, let's imagine ourselves at a conference. And the conference is tiny. Let's say it's 3 people. What's the value of name tags at such a tiny conference? It's the bar chart on the left to skip name tags. But if the size of the conference increases 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, all of a sudden the marginal costs are unacceptable And now we have a financial incentive to, gasp, invest in name tags. Name
Great
tags are not
example.
free. What's that?
Yep. It's a great example. Yeah.
So name tags are not free. And so name tags help us resemble the bar chart, adopt the cost profile on the right. Name tags, I don't know. I don't think they're very expensive, but they're more expensive than no name tags. So the upfront cost, let's call it high. Why would we ever have name tags? To reduce the marginal cost of meeting so many people at a conference. So another fun example is a swimmer. And this gets into the distinguishing productivity and activity, earn versus burn. If I'm a swimmer, and let's say I'm a skilled swimmer enough to swim the English Channel from Dover to Calais, I'm going to refer to earn versus burn. Along this swim, I am burning breaths and strokes. What is the earn of the swim? The mileage. How far have I traveled? I believe it's the same, this earn versus burn. So for a swimmer, earn is the distance and burn are the strokes and the breaths. How does this relate to innovation teamwork? I believe the productivity, the earn are the 5 verbs. Let's manage that. And what's burn? What is the activity? It's meetings and emails. So let's not strangle our, just like you would not prohibit a swimmer. Hey, swimmer, no strokes and no breaths. No, that's silly. Spend what you need to cross the distance you need to accomplish what you want. It's the same thing for our teams. Have the meetings, have the emails, but they are the servant to the distance, to the earn. So earn versus burn, productivity versus activity. And what's in the front seat should be whatever is worth 5 verbs, because that is the destination. These are small wins. They're micro destinations. They're interim, milestones. And what's in the back seat? What is the servant? Meetings and emails.
Yeah, agree. What about gravity and marginal costs?
So I found this quote, right here's a ball. I think it's an IIBA ball. You can ignore
Looks
the
like
laws of gravity, but the laws of gravity do not ignore you. And so your finance department or your team, you can ignore the laws of marginal cost and procrastinate and skip the name tags. You can ignore the laws of marginal cost saying, we saved money by having low upfront cost. But the laws of marginal cost do not ignore your company, and it eats into your profit margin. High marginal cost, it's communication traffic jams, it hurts your margin, it hurts your speed to market. Just because you're frantic does not mean the ensemble is fast. Did we freeze again? Alexander, I will try to riff until you are back online. Gravity, marginal cost. So again, this material is hoping to take teams from a culture that is obsessed with speed and frequency, and instead embrace a culture of synchronization and low marginal cost. And now Alexander has dropped, and I will talk about the next M.
so. I'm back, but you were on the call, yeah?
Yes, and I could tell you were gone, so I continued a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But what did you hear? How much should I back up, or
No, it's okay. Just go on.
okay. So yeah, I'll reinforce this point about marginal cost. I believe that many teams right now are addicted to speed and frequency. That is their leading culture trait. I like speed, but consider treating speed as a lagging culture trait. If speed is a lagging culture trait, something must precede it. It must have a prerequisite, and that is synchronization. So I'm asking you to, instead of a culture addicted to speed and frequency, be addicted to synchronization and low marginal cost.
It's a great approach, yeah, and it helps to explain why we should think about optimizing our processes, about everyday tasks. Just focusing on verbs,
Yeah. If
actually.
if you're addicted to the five verbs, you know your work is durable, it's collaborative, it's on paper, it's vulnerable, um, it's easy. Uh, it it pro it discourages people from abdicating their responsibility. So there's a common culture trait, since we're on this slide, that this work aims to resolve. And many of us in the innovation world, business analysts and otherwise, there are times where we feel accountable. We feel accountable for something, yet we do not have the authority. We want someone's time. We're asking, hey, stakeholder, customer, I need your input. Um, but we don't have the authority to demand that that person contribute. Well, that's kind of a bad deal. To feel accountable for something, but I don't have the authority, I feel set up for failure. So the five verbs helps you prohibit and prevent the decoupling of authority and accountability. Anyone who has the authority for something, they must also have the accountability. And another similar term, decision rights and decision responsibilities. Uh, I think it's a poor culture when you separate decision rights and decision responsibilities. And for a certain executive who wants decision rights, you must step up, you must choose a verb, you must retain decision responsibilities. Lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Yeah, agree. Okay, we have some exercises. I would suggest to keep them for as a homework for our
Yes,
listeners. Yeah,
same.
and I will share. Yeah, I will share this presentation.
Okay.
Okay,
So do you have any reaction to this, or should I go ahead and explain?
let's go ahead. Yeah, and
Okay.
explain.
So this is a word cloud. It's a brainstorm of all the culture traits of high marginal cost. So again, my point of view is that high marginal cost is bad. It makes teamwork more difficult than it should be. So what the words that we use with high marginal cost, and I'll just read from top to bottom. We have too much waiting, things are too complex, things are volatile, someone's being perfectionistic, we are unprepared for a crisis, someone's hiding information that others need. Maybe the previous team didn't document things and then they left the building. We have unhelpful or counterproductive feedback. We have good feedback that we're suppressing because of someone's ego. Maybe the mundane information, we're taking up precious meeting time when, quote, this could have just been an email. We don't delegate things to junior employees that we could. So forth and so on. This word cloud tries to, capture many of the common things that we experience in a culture that has high marginal cost. So the words on the right, what does this mean? It means someone was cheap up front. They were low discipline and they were low empathy because they just didn't care. So the words at the bottom, the best at their jobs really care. And if you think of professional athletes, musicians, the best at their jobs are able to make it look easy. And when we have verb sprawl, we make our jobs look really complicated. And if we have these culture traits of high marginal cost, we are making our jobs really complicated. And so I'm hoping that those of you who embrace this work and reject VUCA, solving VUCA, you help everyone make their jobs look easy. We're just here to do a symphony. We're
Yeah,
just here. Yeah. So costs. If your executives knew how to reduce marginal costs, if your executives knew how to solve these problems in this word cloud, do you think they would do it? Yes. Unless they love VUCA, unless they're
unless
trying
they
to
were.
create chaos.
Yep,
So
and they enjoy it.
right. It's I think the Germans called it Schadenfreude. So
No,
so I hope that my listeners, my readers, they will become skilled at reducing marginal cost before your executives reduce your upfront cost. Because What percentage of companies have cost pressures? 100%. We just have to decide which costs are we going to try to decrease. And my hope is that these materials help you decrease your marginal cost before your executives who are incompetent to reduce marginal costs. They're illiterate and they're incompetent, or they just don't have the same incentive. Maybe they have a different incentive. But when they cut costs, their only competence is cutting upfront costs. That's not growth. That's not profitable. That's your last job because you just got laid off.
Okay, what can we do to reduce marginal cost?
Yeah, so these are some of the templates that are out of scope for this conversation. Well, you'll see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth item on the right, 5 verbs, we did talk about in this session. And the 5 verbs helps you avoid perfectionism because there's an incentive to just move on to the next verb, and it helps you reduce rework. But essentially this table, if I zoom out on this table, what I did is from the previous slide, the word cloud on the previous slide, I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 7 examples, I guess. And I just threw them in a table. And what I did is I mapped them to the template that reduces your marginal cost. So this is the most unique part of my second book. My second book contains a lot of documentation that people are familiar with: project management, process, people, change management, ADCAR, design, build, test. But the second book also contains some very unique templates that help you reduce marginal cost. And so that's the right column here. So the templates include a framework called I like, I wish, I hope, I wonder. ORS stands for observation, reaction, suggestion. This is something I learned in my Toastmasters club, so forth and so on. So it's out of the scope of this conversation. But this is that tall blue bar. These are the templates that are the upfront cost. It is the work. It is the awkward conversations. This is the tall blue bar that helps you reduce marginal cost. So sometimes people say, Robert, you're expecting perfection, and that's absolutely not true. So in statistics class, we learned the difference between sampling errors, systemic errors, and systematic errors. And we could substitute the word failure for errors. So I think they're synonymous enough. But so let's take the example of spilling coffee. Alexander, if you and I are in a coffee shop and I spill coffee accidentally once, it's called a sampling error. No big deal. I'm human. It happens. It's forgivable. The life moves on. The world moves on. What if I am so uncoordinated and my coffee cup, let's say you and I meet for coffee every day, and almost every day I spill coffee. It's not purposeful. I'm just an idiot and I'm a klutz. And so this is a systemic error. Well, although you may not fire me, you're going to tell me, Robert, get that fixed. Get a lid for your coffee. Be more careful and stop spilling coffee on me. That's a systemic error. And then there's a systematic error where every day that we meet for coffee, Alexander, I purposely throw coffee on your shoes. This is systematic. This is called sabotage. And so what this body of work helps you do is say, we are so rigorous that we are constantly reducing systemic errors and systematic errors, because that's the expensive stuff. That's institutional error. That is institutional dysfunction. And so these tools reduce our marginal cost. They fix systemic and systematic errors. And because of that rigor and that discipline, we can forgive all the other sampling errors. We can be impressively forgiving of the sampling errors. It's a rounding error. The magnitude of these problems, it just doesn't matter. It's not even worth talking about. Like dwelling, The word nitpicky. I was talking to a business analyst a couple months ago, and the first thing she said when she got on the Zoom call was, "My boss is being nitpicky." With this work, there's no reason to be nitpicky because there's safety in the 5 verbs. If we made a mistake, there's no single point of failure. There's no one person to crucify. Any of us could have realized, I forgot. And it's not a crime. It's okay. It's NBD. It's no big deal. That's another form of agility, is when everything is no big deal because we know we are so disciplined. We are so empathetic. We are so much thinking about others. Instead of being self-centric and narcissistic, we are constantly thinking about the next document, the next team, the next generation. And when we're that disciplined and that empathetic, all of our human mistakes, move on. Sorry, I spilled coffee. Sue me.
Happens.
Put me in cement. Put me in jail. Come on. So
Okay.
this helps us manage up. That's the
Mm-hmm.
final point here. So lowering marginal cost does start to resemble a PMO, and this helps us manage up without kissing up. Boss, it's just a template. If you like the template, let's adopt it. If you don't like the template, we'll just stay low discipline and stay low empathy, and we'll keep high marginal costs. Maybe your boss wants high marginal cost. Maybe it's his job security.
Happens, yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's systematic.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so culture of speed and the realities of cost.
Yeah. So I love speed, but I love it as a lagging culture trait. I want to resemble the picture on the right. But it's very disciplined, it's very empathetic. Speed is the lagging culture trait. What is the leading culture trait? Well, it's significant upfront cost. Think of how thoughtful that image on the right, think of how much thought needed to go into it. And it aims for synchronization of traffic. Why is it worthwhile? Because the intensity is high, the volume is high. If the volume was low, that's overkill. If the volume is low, let's imitate the picture on the left. So I ask you to be conscious of how you treat speed. If you treat speed as a leading culture trait, I believe you're vulnerable to ending up in a communication traffic jam. Treat speed as a lagging culture trait. It is not free. You must be thoughtful about what is worth synchronizing. It is impossible to synchronize an infinite number of meetings, emails, and verbs. What is possible to synchronize? A finite number of verbs, a finite number of documents. That empowers you to shape a symphony.
Yes. And how can we, yeah. I see you have another slide about speed.
Yeah, it's just another quote. So there's an automobile executive from Detroit in the United States. And over the last couple of years, I found this quote of his. And he said, "The speed of the boss is the speed of the team." And I just disagreed. I believe the synchronization skill of the boss, that is what dictates the speed of the ensemble.
Yes. I can agree on this but again, it depends on the management style. Sometimes, yeah, boss just moves everyone forward and or pushes. But if they are just can synchronize the team, it will be much better. Yeah,
Yeah.
more efficient.
So the metaphor you just proposed is the word push.
Yep.
I hope they didn't pay full price for that MBA.
Oops. Yeah.
Imagine an executive being asked, "What is your leadership style?" Push.
Actually, I think I even heard such things a few times from managers. So unfortunately, it's not so rare as we want to be. And
That
actually, I think Diakoka used it in his book.
okay.
So it's really possible.
I
Okay,
I stand by synchronization as an attractive culture trait. It's more
I prefer synchronization as well.
yeah.
It's more complete. It's more, not complicated, but you need more effort. But anyway, you have better results.
Well, and the effort is upfront cost.
Yep, exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
marginal cost.
Yeah. Okay. So moving curves left.
Yeah. So if you have, so VUCA suggests low confidence in the teamwork, low confidence in your methodology. And so what this graph is if you had a economics class, these are supply and demand curves, and the demand curve always slopes in this direction, down and to the right, and a supply curve always slopes up and to the right. And the vertical axis is price, and the horizontal axis is quantity. So if your confidence in your teamwork, in your methodology, goes down, if you lose confidence, you effectively move your company's demand curve for innovation to the left. If you have a terrible culture, if you have a VUCA culture, a toxic culture, your employee retention goes down. People leave, and your supply curve goes to the left. Now, depending on how much those curves move to the left, the price might go up, the price might go down. But I promise you, the quantity of innovation goes down. So when an organization embraces VUCA, you hurt your confidence, you hurt your employee retention, you innovate less, and you hurt your competitive positioning in the market. The amount of idle work, you have valuable, right? You have literal backlogs. You have idle work, and the amount of idle work goes up. And then you have skilled, experienced business analysts and other innovation workers, and they're also idle. When you increase the amount of your idle work and idle workers, your innovation debt goes up, and society sucks.
Yeah, and work sucks. So
Yes. So instead, this is the graph of what if we solve VUCA and we are addicted to synchronization, we are addicted to low marginal cost, we're addicted to the 5 verbs, and we have this flywheel of collaboration. It's this agreement factory, an elegant expectation factory. Our confidence goes up, which means the demand curve goes to the right. Organizations have the confidence and they have the appetite and the courage to innovate more. They must hire more. Employee retention goes up. This moves the supply curve to the right. Now, I don't know whether the price goes up or down. That depends on how much the demand and supply curves move to the right. But what is unquestionable is that the quantity of innovation goes up. So now the amount of valuable innovation work that's idle goes down. Idle workers, the amount of idle workers goes down, and our innovation debt goes down. So my concern about the job market right now is that because of VUCA, because so many organizations are experiencing meeting gridlock, email overload, they have these communication traffic jams, consciously or subconsciously, companies are looking down on this traffic, and they see the traffic jams and they see franticness, but they don't see things moving quickly, and they keep demanding, why aren't things moving faster? Well, it's because you created the traffic jam. So I believe this is why. There's this phrase, change is happening faster than ever. So I disagree. I think VUCA is happening more than ever, and communication traffic jams are more common than ever. But it's not the same thing. When people say, well, change is moving faster and faster, I don't think it means projects like their success rates are rising. I don't believe so. Are projects finishing? Like, are we doing more projects? No, there are a lot of people out of work, and the innovation debt is increasing. So I think it's worthwhile to distinguish and disagree with this statement that change is moving faster than ever. No, it's VUCA and it's franticness. it's not successful projects. And there's a difference, right? Just because we have more activity does not mean we have more productivity. And so this supply and demand curve is just trying to show, it tries to propose the effect on the job market of a new methodology. Because if we surrender to VUCA, we move these curves to the left, and the world is just, there's innovation debt goes up. Let's pay back our innovation debt. We must reject VUCA. We must move the supply and demand curve to the right. This improves confidence in our companies and our teamwork. I just think that's an attractive place, but we have to move these supply and demand curves to the right. We must reject VUCA. We cannot accept or surrender to VUCA.
Yeah, I think we should definitely improve our everyday processes using these 5 verbs and focus on verbs and not on productivity, not activity. Yeah,
The activity is
and
fine. Your meetings and emails are not at risk. You're
let's
still
let's
gonna
let's say
chat.
meeting notes. Let's say meeting. Let's say my meeting notes. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, totally agree that this just changing the focus on getting some results, getting things done, can improve a lot of our everyday work. But again, we should spend a lot of effort here, just in upfront costs to reduce this margin cost.
I acknowledge what is unpopular. Name tags are not that unpopular. Building a train system in a growing city, I understand that it's unpopular. In the United States, the cities of Phoenix and Minneapolis have recently added onto their train systems. It was unpopular for, the homes that were displaced. I understand. Why would a city add to its train system? To reduce marginal cost.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think it's enough for today.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Thank. Yeah, it's a lot, and I just want to remind you that you have our viewers, that you have your homework. You can download the presentation, try to fill out all these blanks on these slides that we skipped. But anyway, Robert, thank you very much. It was a really interesting conversation, and I actually would like to test some of these ideas in my current project.
That's awesome.
Just want to remind you that Robert will be speaker at our conference next May. So please go to ba.com and book your ticket, and see you all on the Robert session, yeah, and at our conference. Robert,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Yeah,
Thank you for
it
hosting me,
was.
Alexander. It was very fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was really interesting conversation, and have a nice day.
You too.
Bye. Robert, I think you should stop meetings because you are host now.
Let me stop. You're right.
You can
Stop.
and you can just
Why is it
leave
not